Okay, well, the Buckeyes were healthy for the most part, and it definitely helped out a lot here in this game. 24-10, the final score from Camp Randall as the Buckeyes survive a tough road test. And look, there were a lot of good things that happened. There were some not great things that happened, and I want to talk about one specific player that's up there in the sub headline, but we're going to talk about him when we get to him. I do want to talk about the game as a whole first because, look, this definitely felt like a game coming into it that you could not set yourself up for a letdown here, right? Ohio State played a very physical, tough game against Penn State. They were able to win, and then you have to go on the road against a Wisconsin team that a lot of people were going to overlook and say, "Oh yeah, you saw what we did against this team last year. This is going to be easy." Wisconsin's not as good of a team as last year. Their quarterback is hurt. That defense is not statistically as good. And I even said in my preview, no, Wisconsin's going to give Ohio State a fight here, and that's exactly what they did. Now, unfortunately for Wisconsin, Braylon Allen ended up going down there on that goal line stand in the very, very closing seconds of the second quarter, and then he did not play the second half. I hope nothing but the best for Braylon Allen because I love watching him play. He is a phenomenal, phenomenal talent. So hopefully he can get back on the football field sooner than later. Ohio State had a couple people go down with some injuries as well. JTT went down. He ended up coming back in the game to play. Lathan Ransom went down, actually ended up being carted back to the locker room. He did come back onto the sideline, but I don't know quite the extent to the injury that Lathan Ransom has. And then obviously Emeka Egbuka sounded like he was going to be healthy and ready to go, but did not play in this game. Obviously, it didn't matter. You take a look at the final scoreline. But there definitely were some things that, well, Ohio State definitely needs to work on here moving forward. So before we dive on into it, I just got to say, what's up, Tailgaters? My name is Tailgate Nate. You're watching my Ohio State fan reaction series. Again, obviously, we're going to be reacting to the game against Wisconsin here, Game 8 of Ohio State's 2020 season. The Buckeyes remain undefeated here. They are now 8-0 after the win in Camp Randall. But guys, I talk about more than Ohio State football on this channel. I do top 25s, preview predictions, college football playoff. We're soon going to be reacting to the college football playoff rankings that now come out every Tuesday. Guys, please hit the subscribe button down below. Ring the bell if you are a college football fan and you want to see some of my thoughts on the season. But hey, there are other ways than that you can help support the channel. Doing one right now by watching the video. You can do more by liking, commenting, sharing, yada, 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 all that. You guys know all that if you've been on my channel before. You guys are here to listen to me talk about Ohio State football, which is what I'm going to do now. And there were some really good moments today, and it started out with the running game, right? So obviously not having Travion Henderson over the past couple of games has really put a damper on what Ohio State's been able to do on the ground and has sort of made this team look like, hey, this is not a team that can really run the ball. Well, that took a big jump when Travion Henderson came back today. His first game since the last really big game here, not Penn State, but go all the way back to September 23rd. This was Travion Henderson's first game since that Notre Dame thriller in South Bend. He had 24 carries for 162 yards. That's 6.8 yards per carry and 1 touchdown. And you could just feel his impact on this game. Without Travion Henderson there, now look, Ohio State still has a lot of very good options, right? Chip Trayanum, for the most part this year, has been running well. You can still run the end-around play with Xavier Johnson with X, and that's exactly what the Ohio State did today. 4 times for 29 yards. Not too bad of a showing there on those end-around plays that they like to run with X. You even got a guy like Mayan Williams, who didn't get a touch here in this game, but still really solid back, a really good option. And then, of course, Dallin Hayden, who the Buckeyes are trying to redshirt this year, is still sitting back there. But you could just tell how much Ohio State missed Travion Henderson because he showed his impact in this game. He was all over the field. He was doing it all. He was also Ohio State's second leading receiver here, catching some routes out of the backfield, including a wheel route that he took for 30 yards. He also took a run 33 yards to the house, which ended up icing this game at 24-10. But you can feel, again, just how much of an impact he has on this team, how much of an impact he has on opposing defenses, because he's really hard to stop. He's really tough to plan for. Now, granted, I have been on record saying I believe Dallin Hayden is the best back in this room, and while I still believe that, you could tell how much how much Ohio State missed TreVeyon Henderson with his performance today. You can also kind of tell how much Ohio State is missing a really, really good receiver and Emeka Egbuka as well. Now, again, it doesn't really matter when you have a cheat code in Marvin Harrison Jr. that, look, albeit Wisconsin did a very, very good job at being able to lock him down, especially for the first 15 minutes. But when you take a look at Marvin Harrison Jr., the floodgates are going to open eventually, right? Marvin Harrison Jr. is just too good of a player. You cannot keep him under wraps for too long, right? And that's kind of exactly what happened here. So he had 6 catches for 123 yards. That's 20.5 yards per catch, and then 2 touchdowns for his to add to his season totals as well. Definitely the Heisman conversation around him is really starting to creep up and starting to become a lot more serious. I believe he's now officially top 8 in Heisman odds. I'm not sure of his official placement in that, but he is now one of the assured front runners to go win the Heisman Trophy. But he is a cheat code. He is just absolutely insane, and I think we all know that, and we all know that he's going to go to the next level next year, so let's enjoy him while we have him, right? But he's absolutely phenomenal. He is a fantastic player to watch. And again, even in this game, he was catching balls through double coverage. He was catching balls when he was being interfered with. There was even one of his touchdown catches where just no idea how he was still able to hold on to the ball as the Wisconsin defender ended up grabbing his face mask, throwing him to the ground. Somehow he got a foot down. And of course, the touchdown counted. It was a little bit slow to get up there, but again, obviously ended up being fine. But when you look beyond Marvin Harrison Jr. in this wide receiver room, yes, Emeka Egbuka, I believe, did travel with the team, but did not play in this game, which tells me he's probably not fully 100% healthy, ready to go. Well, when you take a look at the schedule down there, you got Rutgers, Michigan State, and Minnesota. 3 games that Ohio State probably are going to end up winning. And then, of course, you have that game for Michigan. So a lot of time for Emeka Egbuka to get healthy there. We'll talk about a defensive player that got healthy when we switch over to the defensive side, which is going to be a much shorter conversation than the offense, let me tell you. But this was a wide receiver core that had some uncharacteristic drops. And Marvin Harrison Jr., I didn't really notice that problem plaguing him like it had the past couple of weeks. But Julian Fleming, to his benefit here, did appear like he got somewhat hurt in this game. Carnell Tate ended up coming in to take his place, I believe, for the majority of the contest. Don't know if it was a bruised rib, a shoulder. It was definitely some upper body injury there for Julian Fleming. Landed on something, ended up coming out, and then I think the very next play that he ended up getting in, Kyle McCord ended up taking a deep shot to him right in the basket. Is a really, really good throw by Kyle McCord, and, well, Fleming just dropped it. So to his benefit, he did look not 100% at all in this game. Hopefully Julian Fleming can stay healthy because, again, even though he's probably not as good of a receiver as Emeka Egbuka and definitely not as good of a receiver as Marvin Harrison Jr., he's still a big part to what Ohio State likes to do in the pass game. So it'd be a really, really big deal to see him go down, or I should say be out for a significant amount of time. And speaking of being out for a significant amount of time, someone that was healthy in this game, but just is nowhere to be seen on the stat sheet and was really nowhere to be seen in this game at all was Cade Stover, the tight end. And I don't know if it was Wisconsin just had a really good game plan to be able to slow him down, to be able to cover him. Maybe Kyle McCord missed him. And again, we're going to talk about Kyle McCord here in this video. I got a lot to say about Kyle McCord. Some good, some bad. It's not all bad. Calm down, Buckeye fans. We don't need a change at quarterback. Let's slow the roll here. But yeah, I mean, Cade Stover was just absolutely nowhere. I think it was a combination of Kyle McCord not being at his best, which again, we're going to talk about here later. But I also think it was a combination of, I just thought Wisconsin had a very, very solid game plan to be able to slow Ohio State's receivers down. They did a fairly nice job in coverage, especially being able to key in on Marvin Harrison Jr., especially in the early game there. The name of the Wisconsin corner is escaping my mind. I'm looking at now. Ricardo Hallman. He was the one matched up with Marvin Harrison Jr. for the most part, and I thought he performed really, really well. Really, really, really well. And speaking of performing really well, I mean, let's go away from the Ohio State offense for a second. Let's talk about the Wisconsin defense, because I think we kind of knew this Wisconsin offense was going to be a little bit of a struggle. They were going to have to rely a lot on Braylon Allen, who had his good moments throughout the first half. Again, as I mentioned in the intro of this video, got hurt in the second quarter and did not play the rest of the game. However, the guy that was right behind him in Jackson Aker definitely provided his challenges when he ran the ball for this Wisconsin team. Braden Locke had a couple of times where he was able to get out of the pocket and run, even though he was not a running threat at all. And that's exactly why he was able to get out of the pocket and run, because Ohio State didn't think he was a running threat, so he was able to get out of the pocket and find some space. But let's go back to this Wisconsin defense. All credit to this Wisconsin offense. I thought they played as best as they could, given the way that Tanner Mordecai, even though he hasn't been that impressive this year, even though he was hurt, considering Braylon Allen went down, considering there were a lot of throws, a ton of throws that Wisconsin wide receivers should have caught, but ended up slipping through their hands, or they just couldn't come up with the catch. But this is a Badger defense that I thought, for the most part, besides a couple of big plays and a couple of defensive lapses, played very, very well. And you take a look here, they generated 4 sacks, 9 tackles for loss. They were in the backfield like that. It was a very, very impressive defensive performance to watch. I give all credit to this Wisconsin defense because I thought they played really, really well. Now, I know that Buckeye fans are going to come out here and say, but the Buckeye offense struggled. The Buckeye offense did this. They couldn't do this. They couldn't do that. This is a lot better of a defense than the statistics will show with Wisconsin. They still love to get into the backfield. They're still, for the most part, a pretty solid run defense. Again, Travion Henderson showed that he is just a really good running back with his performance yesterday. Have I been saying today? Again, I record these videos the next day, so last night, Travion Henderson showed he was a really good, really good option there last night. But, I mean, there were a ton of really, really good defensive performances from the Wisconsin Badgers. Give them credit for being able to lock down Marvin Harrison Jr. when they could. Give them credit for being able to get to Kyle McCord, force him to the ground, and force turnovers out of Kyle McCord. So, here's where we're going to sort of transition into the talk about Kyle McCord. Because look, but before I say everything that I am about to say, I need everyone out there to hear, and I need especially every Ohio State fan out there to hear who has been complaining about the play of Kyle McCord and who has been begging for a quarterback change since the first interception he threw against the Indiana Hoosiers. Go back to what he did in South Bend against the Notre Dame Fighting Irish. Not everyone, in fact, very, very few people can go out there with 1:26 left, drive down the field, and help your team score a game-winning touchdown while making some really, really good throws in a hostile environment against, for the most part, with Notre Dame, a top 25, if not top 15, maybe you can make the case a top 10 defense in the nation, and win a game like that against a top 10 opponent in Notre Dame. Not everyone can do that. That just proves that he is a guy. He is a dude. And when he is on his A game, Kyle McCord is a really, really good quarterback. However, you go back and take a look at last night, Kyle McCord was not on his A game. Now, granted, I still have full belief in Kyle McCord that he's going to still be able to get his things figured out. See, he's going to be able to settle his feet, and I believe he's going to have better performances than what he did last night against the Wisconsin Badgers in Camp Randall. But all of the inconsistencies, all of the mistakes of not only Kyle McCord, but of this offensive line, especially in pass protection, caught up with Kyle McCord today. Now, granted, there was one interception where he just tried to force it into the end zone to Carnell Tate. Don't really know what you were doing there. He was able to get out of the pocket, had all the time in the world. I believe it was only second or third down, so live to see another play, Kyle. Just throw the football away. No need to try to force that pick there. That's what it ended up happening. Again, Wisconsin was not able to do anything with the turnover. Again, that just goes back to this Ohio State defense that is really, really good, and we'll talk about that later too. But no reason to force that throw there. Live to see another down, live to see another play, and throw the football away. Second thing with Kyle McCord. Okay, by the way, before we talk about the second thing I want to talk about, that second interception there. Yeah, maybe he could have thrown the ball a little bit sooner. Yeah, maybe he could have read the defense a little bit better, but it was just one of those instances, and this is where we go back to how good of a player Ricardo Hallman is he just read the quarterback's eyes. He knew exactly when to jump the route, and he jumped it, and he was able to pick that ball off. I give nothing but credit to Ricardo Hallman on that play. I fully understand the decision to try to throw the ball to Marvin Harrison Jr. there on that play. It was just I thought if Ricardo Hallman wouldn't have jumped it, it would have been a very good throw. However, it's just an even better defensive play by Ricardo Hallman to be able to jump in front and to pick that ball off. So that interception didn't really bother me here. But what did bother me is, again, you saw this in the game against Purdue, and in some ways, or you saw this in the game against Purdue and Penn State there as well. But when Kyle McCord gets hit from the blind side, or he's not expecting to get hit inside of the pocket, he's very, very loose with his ball security. And there was a ball that popped out here against Wisconsin that ended up falling to the turf, and the Badgers ended up recovering on that play against Penn State. If not for the unfortunate penalty on the side of the Nittany Lions, Penn State was running that thing back to the house after they had gotten Kyle McCord to the ground and forced the football out of his hands. And then he even had protection issues against the Purdue Boilermakers there as well. Purdue does have some pretty good edge rushers, but my point being this is when you are a quarterback in front of an offensive line that has had as many up and down moments as the Ohio State offensive line has had so far this season, you need to basically, and again, this should be the role of the quarterback anyway. You want to rely on your offensive lineman to be able to protect you, but you also kind of have to expect to get hit. It's just part of the job. It's going to happen. There are going to be times where your offensive lineman will miss a block or the defense, and in a lot of cases, well, I should say both happened. Both cases happened. There were offensive linemen that missed some blocks, and there was just some very, very good rushes by these Wisconsin Badgers. But you got to be prepared to get hit. And every time you get hit, that ball comes out. I mean, that's not good, man. That is really, really not good. And then, again, the decision issues by Kyle McCord. There have been so many times. I'm sure Ohio State fans can name like 5 off the top of their head. I'm not going to do that here for time's sake, but there are so many plays that you can go back and look back on, specifically in that Penn State game and that Notre Dame game, but really plays all throughout the season where there was a decision made by Kyle McCord that maybe wasn't the best decision and it slips through a defender's hands, or it's a little too high for the defender to handle. Basically, so many times where the defense was this close to being able to have Kyle McCord throw or be able to force Kyle McCord to throw an interception, which, look, his decision-making definitely has needed work ever since day one. And granted, it has gotten better as the season has gone along. It has. Let's not sit here and pretend like it hasn't. It has. His decision-making has gotten a whole lot better. And this offensive line, in ways, has gotten better. I just think this is a very, very tough environment, a very, very tough game. And this was a team in Wisconsin that was hungry to try to beat the Ohio State Buckeyes, try to pull off the upset. Ohio State did everything it needed to do to be able to pull out the win. But coming out of this game, the biggest thing that I think needs to improve for this team is the offensive line has got to get better, and then Kyle McCord has got to settle his feet, has got to stop rushing his decisions. Oh, and the last thing I wanted to talk about with Kyle McCord, I knew there was one thing, but I was forgetting it. I don't know how many times he's been called for intentional grounding here, and that just is young immaturity, and it's panic. It's pure panic. And look, while the offensive line, you could say, yes, needs to do his job, needs to give Kyle McCord some more time to be able to throw the football there, taking a 15-yard penalty and a loss of down there as well. I understand trying to avoid the sack, but I don't know how many times Kyle McCord has been, look, way too many times that I would care to count. He's been called for intentional grounding a lot this season. the decision-making, the poise, and look, I know this is Kyle McCord's first season starting, and again, I have full faith in him because, again, what he did against Notre Dame, and he's had some really good performances this year, and even in this game against Wisconsin, he made some really, really good throws. He did. He made some really, really good throws to Marvin Harrison Jr. That throw that Julian Fleming dropped was a very, very good throw. Obviously, just Julian Fleming not able to hold on to it. But for Kyle McCord, settle your feet, trust your offensive line maybe a little bit more, and be able to trust your wide receivers, which he does, especially with Marvin Harrison Jr., and let the play develop a little bit more. Don't panic and try to throw the football away when you're still in the tackle box, and don't just chuck it down to the ground. That's intentional grounding. He's going to get called for that a lot more this year if he can't fix some of the things that we saw here in this game against the Wisconsin Badgers. Again, I would like to reiterate, even though I just kind of dogged on Kyle McCord there, I still have full faith in him, and I still believe that he's going to show that he can get better. He's going to show that he's going to improve, but again, you've got 1 month to really get better before that game on the road in the Big House against the Michigan Wolverines. College football playoff rankings come out on Tuesday. I know there are a ton of people saying that with the resume and with with how everything has played out, Ohio State definitely could end up being the number one team. How much do I really care about that? Not really much, because you still got to win out 4 more games. Next one is on the road against Rutgers. I know, Buckeye fans, I know you're probably laughing about that. Oh, it's Rutgers, will be fine. Don't underestimate this Rutgers team. This is a Rutgers team that is much like Wisconsin. While the offense may not be all there, especially for the most part, that's a defense that is quietly under the radar, performing as one of the better defenses in the nation. So you got to be able to, again, offensively improve here to be able to get through this Rutgers defense that, again, is playing really, really well, and the offense has some good moments like what people have seen out of Wisconsin this year. 6-2 Rutgers going on the road. That definitely could be one where I'm not going to ring the upset bell quite yet, but it could be one where Ohio State maybe doesn't win as big as some people think they should, but it's a credit to how well Greg Schiano and Rutgers has performed so far this year. Then you got Michigan State with the gray unis. Oh, can't wait to see those. Minnesota at home, and then, of course, the big one in the Big House. But the Buckeyes sit at 8-0 right now. They survive a tough road test against the Badgers and Camp Randall. Sorry to all my Wisconsin fans out there. I was texting a lot of them during the game, but this should definitely be a very interesting last month of the season. The books are shut on October. We move now into November, and I still don't think Ohio State has played its best football. This defense, what do you want me to say? Yes, this defense had its moments today where they allowed some chunk yardage plays, but credit to Wisconsin's offense for being able to exploit that. And again, though, for the most part, this Ohio State defense is really, really good. Still one of the better defenses in the entire nation. Again, you held Wisconsin to 10 points, 6 of 16 on third down, 0 of 2 on fourth down, 259 yards, 94 yards rushing, 165 yards passing. Did force 1 turnover there as well. And this was a Buckeye team that, all in all, controlled the clock. So can't be too upset with the performance here. Again, just let Kyle McCord develop a little bit more. Let him get better. It's really, really good to have a guy like Denzel Burke back. We'll see if Lathan Ransom, how healthy he's going to be. And we'll see how soon Emeka Egbuka can get back on the field so the Buckeyes can be at full strength. But that's going to do it for this Ohio State fan reaction. Just talked about the game against Wisconsin. We'll talk about the game against Rutgers in 1 week here next Sunday. Remember to play hard, but tailgate harder, everyone. Tomorrow you'll see my Week 9 biggest takeaways, as well as my new edition of the Top 25. Take care, everyone. Have a good day.